Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Daily Podcast. Another boring intro into what is going to be a very exciting episode, guys. I've got so many mundane things I'd like to speak about this week. That's not true. Most of my plan is with this podcast, per usual, talk about some comedy stuff. And then the rest, you just go, I hope interesting things pop in my head in the next 45 minutes. So we'll find out together. We'll find out together if that is going to happen or not. We're deep into October now. We're in, what is today? The 21st? October 21st. It's actually been very warm this last week, which has been great. I will say, it's very easy to complain. I complain about stuff that I shouldn't. It's not the end of the world, but with running and with the heat, I like the heat because then you don't have to put layers on, and then you soak that sun up. But also, more recently, I remembered that running when it's about 50 degrees is very pleasant. It allows your body to heat up or to like push itself to go longer and faster. And I've run over the last week when it's been hot again. It's been in the 70s and 80s, and it just, man, what a difference. Running when it's 80, it's just my body's like, yuck. I have to like labor through to get 3 miles. And then there's no pushing it. Not even and then. There's just no pushing it. And so there's where I'm at with the running. There's the running portion of the podcast. Follow me on Strava. Let's get my Strava social media larger than all my other social medias. I'm trying to become a comic that sells out Strava tickets. I'll be the first Strava comic. I'll do it. No, but good to be here. It's midday here, Saturday. It's chilly in the apartment actually. It's very cold. It's like 75 outside. I don't get it. 75 outside, but it's 65 in the apartment right now. And I'm not good at like math and weather and when those like kind of come together, but I also don't understand how that's a thing. Why is it so much colder inside than it is outside? Somebody leave a comment. Let me know how that works. We'll talk about it next time. But it's been a very busy week. I feel like every episode I get on here and I'm like, it's been so busy, blah, blah, blah. But it really has been busy in a good way. Always good to be busy. Always good to be doing more shows and getting out there doing mics and doing, just regular life stuff too, like exercising, running, trying to eat healthy. I got my AG1. I told you guys, I think in the last podcast that I wouldn't say I broke down and got a subscription, but I just finally was like, you know what? I'm going to get a subscription. And so I got, it's like a monthly thing. It's like $100 a month. It's actually very expensive, but health is very important. Okay. Health is one of the top priorities in my life. And it should be in everybody's life, You eat good, you feel good. Eat good, exercise, sleep, you feel better physically and mentally. I'm trying to tap into just the best version of myself. So excited to have. I haven't gotten it yet. I got the box right here in front of me. Just got in. I'll probably take a swig of it here after this episode, after recording. But curious to find out how it tastes. Actually, I don't even care how it tastes, to be honest. I'm not a picky person at all, and I've dealt with a lot of different, I guess, I don't know that I call it a supplement per se, but a lot of different proteins and supplements and vitamins and just foods in general I've had over the years, to eat and to be like, this is healthy, so I'll eat it. And a lot of it, doesn't taste very good, but it's like it's fine. Like we will drink alcohol all day, which, liquor, especially taking shots, doing that. And you're like, that's literally, it's gross. It's disgusting having a shot of something. But we do it people do it because they're like, I want to get a buzz. I want to have this drink, feel the burn, taste nasty. I might throw up, but it's for the buzz, baby. Well, no different than a lot of supplements and stuff. Maybe not like the taste of it or whatever, but you're like, this is for the health bennies, the health benny fitties. Benny Fitties. That's my new nickname moving forward. Benny Fitties. Ben is having a lot of temper tantrums and fits, so we call him Benny Fitties. And I just announced my new nickname, guys. So there you go. Benny Fitties, that's my new stage name. I'm struggling here with a little sinus backup stuff. I gotta cough out some snot in my system. I'm trying to hold it in, and I'm getting a little tickle in my nose. When you're trying to like ramble and your nose tickles. It's kind of the same as like when you're on stage and you're getting to the punchline, and you're like, my body needs to swallow, and I'm pushing it down, and at some point it's gonna swallow on its own, and I hope it's not during the punchline. That's how I feel right now. I got some snot in my nose, and I'm trying to be funny, but not sneeze. That's the zone I like to be in, where you're like being funny but about to sneeze. It's a good place to be. Anyways, AG1, excited for it. Are they a sponsor? No. I need about, numbers unbelievably higher than I currently have. I need to start plugging the pod more. I say it all the time, but I never mention it, and I should. I'm gonna start doing it. Especially once I start headlining. I will definitely do it. I just feel bad, or not even bad. I just feel silly at like a local show doing a spot, being like, "Say my podcast." It's like, you don't even have to say my name. Just go, this next comic, clap your hands, and I'll just come on stage. I'll just walk up there and I'll go, do I have a name? Do I not have a name? Who knows? But who cares? I'm not here to talk about my name. I'm here to tell you some jokes. Okay? And jokes I will tell. I did, I'll get into the shows this week, and maybe bounce around to different topics. I'm trying to think like, exciting things that have gone on. Reading some, but yeah, let's start with just what I've been up to this week comedy-wise, and I'll weave it in and out, okay? I'm a professional. I'm not, but nowadays anybody can say that you're perfect. You just go, I have an iPhone and an SM58 and one of these cords here and a little thing that I plug it into. I'm a professional. Okay? It's shot in HD, so must be a professional. But let's start with earlier this week. First thing I did this week, went to a handful of open mics, but Tuesday did New Talent Night at Comedy Works. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're probably familiar. But if you're not familiar, that's like the amateur night at the big comedy club in Denver, Comedy Works. It's a very fun show. It's always great. They always fill it out. It's almost always sold out or very close to it. It was very close to it on Tuesday. There were probably 200 plus people maybe. Hot crowd. Did I wouldn't say new stuff. But I did, it's a 4-minute set that I got to do. There's like 15 other comics. It's a long show. There's a lot of people in there, but it's something you get to do like once every 3 months. And I was excited to do it. It's been since like July, I think, since last time I did it. So was excited to do it. It's always exciting to do the club in general, but also it's like when you aren't able to do something like that, or when it's like once every 3 months and you're only getting 4 minutes, it adds a little bit more pressure, which feels good to be at this point where I'm at, where sure, there's still pressure, but the more you put yourself in situations like that, or just other shows in general where the pressure is higher, the more you get used to it. I mean, that's common sense, but an important element for what we're doing with comedy-wise, because you can get comfortable, you can feel loose and silly in spaces that maybe you've gotten a lot of reps in, or you're surrounded by friends, or whatever the case is, to where you feel loose and good, and that's all good and dandy, but you need to strive towards feeling that way and being able to tap into that energy or that vibe or whatever you're trying to do on stage everywhere, not just where you've gotten hundreds of reps in at this certain venue and you're like, oh, I'm comfortable here now, so I can do well here. But you need to be able to tap into that when you're under pressure, whether that's at your big club or whether you're on the road and maybe you don't have any friends there and you just feel out of place. You need to be able to tap into it. So the more reps you get kind of in that arena of where you feel uncomfortable or you just feel maybe out of your element a little bit, but you're still able to tap into that. That's what we're looking for, trying to do that. So all that said, I felt pretty good. I felt, again, with the diet stuff that I've been doing, a lot more even keel. Felt good to go up there and just do the thing and have people laugh, and was excited to be there. So yeah, that was Tuesday, New Talent Night. Always fun to do that. Wednesday, I think I took off. I haven't gone out on Wednesday a ton. I used to go down to Colorado Springs on Wednesday and do a couple mics down there. I haven't done that in a minute. And then the other mic, there's a mic at Rise Comedy on Wednesdays, which is it's a good mic. It's just a little bit later and just not the best hang. It's a little tougher hang. You have to kind of hang out in the showroom the entire time, and you don't really know when you're going up, so it makes it tough to like hang out, and nobody's really coming up to you to be like, hey, you're up next. You have to kind of keep an ear out to hear when you're going up. But all that said, Wednesday didn't go out, stayed in. Thursday, hosted a rotating tap show at Station 26. It was like the last outdoor patio show they had for the season, since it's getting chilly. Weather was actually pretty nice. When the sun goes down here in Colorado, especially, the temperatures start to plummet. But just with the sweater on, kind of similar to what I have right now, it was totally fine. That was a fun show. Always glad to be able to host shows, get more reps in that sense. Lower stakes show. I mean, there's probably 25 people outside. Nothing crazy, but the people that were there to have a good time. So it was fun being able to host that show. And I tried out a new story I've been working on, which I'm very excited about it. I told you guys, I mentioned it in the last podcast. Working on this story about a very just embarrassing situation that happened while I was in high school. And I feel like I have the elements of the story. I got to keep working it out to try to tighten it and just, figure out exactly what's working every time, what's working some of the time, what's not working that much, and then just be able to trim that fat and link all of it together in more of a final product. Which a lot of our jokes are, people say this all the time. Comics will say that it's never a final product. You keep going, You can always make changes, which is true, but I think the majority of people, you work out your joke in the first week or couple weeks, and then once you kind of have that joke, that's a lot of times I feel like what it is. And then maybe in the future, way down the line, you'll like change a tag or you'll like cut out a piece because it just isn't working as consistently or something like that. But the majority of the stuff is done, at least for me, in that first couple weeks. And so I'm kind of in that period right now, really trying to get the reps in to work it out, to figure out like what is working so I can then try to do that on stage. As I mentioned last time, it's tough because it's like a 6 or 7 minute story, which is a major chunk of time. And especially if I'm trying it out for the first couple times on a show where maybe I'm only doing 10 minutes, that's the majority of the time. So it's just kind of like it's a riskier thing to do. But that's what comedy's all about, taking risks. So I'm trying to balance taking those risks versus taking those risks in the right situations. I don't want to take risk in certain scenarios where maybe the stakes are a little bit higher or it's a better show. And if it does flop or doesn't go well, then the whole set flops. So trying to be smart about that. But did it on Thursday. It seemed to go okay. There's definitely some things I need to get better and update, change, delete, switch out, add, whatever the word you want to say there. A lot of the words need to be done to that joke. But I'm excited about it. It's the first joke I've been excited about for a while, so we'll see how it goes. Did that, like I said, Thursday night. Friday night Friday night was last night. Wow. Friday night I did 2 shows at the Denver Comedy Lounge. Again, if you're not familiar with the scene, it's a very cool independent club in Denver. Dude, Denver has so many awesome spots. It really does. Like, it's kind of crazy how much is available. Whether big clubs, indie shows, breweries, you name it, any venue. There's just so many opportunities out there, which is awesome. But got to do 2 shows at the Denver Comedy Lounge. Always enjoyed doing time there. Ben Kronberg, super, super nice guy. Just so funny. He's just so nice, like such a humble dude. But it's in the back of a sake bar. And so you go in there and like when you're in the sake area or like the front kind of restaurant area, it just looks like a normal spot. You wouldn't expect to walk back in the back and have this like magical comedy room. It's a very cool spot. If you haven't checked out a show there, for sure you should check it out. Get some friends together. I mean, they got good food, drinks. It's a good time. But did 2 shows there, 7 and 9 o'clock. They were both pretty much sold out, if not sold out. And I was going to try that story there, but we're doing 10 minutes. And you know what? I was like, I was going first. I was going after the host. And it's, there's a lot of factors that go into it. But with all that said, being a little more official of a show at like an indie club versus, maybe a brewery show or a lower stakes show, the fact that I was going first after the host, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do the solid 10. And not try this story. I was thinking about doing the story, but I was like, I want to make sure that I feel a little bit of responsibility to kind of like get that show started off well. Obviously, as the host, that's like one of the core elements of hosting is, get people, bring some energy, get them to clap, and, bring the show up for the other comics. But also when you go first, it's like, I feel that responsibility a little bit as well. Because if the host kind of does their job to bring it up and then I just kind of swing and miss and then bring it all the way back down, then, I mean, that's common sense stuff that I'm saying, but I felt that pressure a little bit, so I didn't do the new story, but it was nice to be able to do kind of a solid 10. The crowds were fun. I've been working on this joke a little bit and I need to expand it out more, but as I have it now, a joke about being a leasing consultant. I got a lot of jokes about past jobs I've had. Joke about being a lifeguard. Joke about, interviewing my boss. Leasing consultant. I tried for a while and it's still kind of out there, but it was never like in the solid portion of my set. But working at Halloween City, I've tried to do jokes around that, which I should maybe try to bring back. I've tried a story with Halloween City, but never been able to get it down. Anyways, the leasing consultant I've come back around to and tried to work out some stuff, and I have what I think is a pretty okay minute and a half or whatever. It's pretty short at the moment. But I did that. I threw that in the set for the 10 minutes, and it did pretty well. It was nice to see it. I haven't done it at a ton of shows, and it did fairly decent. I actually might clip out one of the clips about the joke. I have a joke, or part of the joke is basically just talking about my experience as a leasing consultant and how wild it was. And one part of the joke is like a mini short story of part of my job, which was giving tours to prospective residents, and how it was just chaotic. It was a luxury apartment complex, but also, it's just chaotic. Whenever you have, whether it's luxury or not, whenever you have 500 people in a building and just a bunch of moving parts and, a ton of different stuff, you're just running into stuff all the time where you're like, this is wild. Like one time, homeless people, unhoused people, whatever I don't even know. I'm not sure. I'm assuming they were homeless. They were people that were sneaking in the apartment building and sleeping in the community room for like a month straight. And they just like got away with it, which is hilarious. We're like, we're a luxury apartment complex and we security, this, that, all these things that we're telling people. Meanwhile, we didn't even realize for like a month that people are just sneaking in and sleeping in the community room. But that happened for like a month. And the last night that they stayed there, they stole all the TVs, tried to steal the computers as well. I think they tried to steal the printer, which is hilarious, to get like 6 50-inch TVs stolen and be like, let's get this $30 printer. But we can sell that ink for good money on the black market. But they stole, just a bunch of wild stuff like that. Which was also funny. I need to try to implement that story into the joke. There's a bunch of mini stories like that where maybe I can, just write them out in joke form and put them all together. But it's just tough I have a lot of stories like that where I've tried and it's just haven't been successful as of yet to get them into a stand-up format. But it was very funny with that stolen TV situation in the community room because the person who stole them, no joke, steals all the TVs. They get out of there before, we open in the office. So nobody knows until we get there at like 9 a.m. They stole them overnight. We notice, we shut down the community room. There's just wires hanging because they just pulled the TVs out of the wall. And then, I'm not kidding you, like 10:30 a.m., the guy who stole the TVs came back because he had left his cell phone in the crime area. And he came back in and was like, hey, I left my phone. He was like, I know somebody who lives here and they let me in and I left my phone here. And we were like, yeah, no problem. And then meanwhile, we're like walkie-talkie. We had like a off-duty police officer who lived there and was like our security guy. So he came into the office while we were like looking for the cell phone, even though he had it. And, it's funny when you work somewhere and you get all giddy for certain situations like that where you're like, oh my gosh, we're private investigators. We're detectives. Like we're leasing consultants, but right now in this moment, we're on the case, okay? And we're about to crack it and serve justice to this guy who stole our TVs. And yeah, they arrested him. He just came back to get arrested. It was hilarious. It's like, how dumb could you possibly be? So, anyways, that was one of the mini stories there. But the story that I started that got me on this tangent was giving tours, and one of the things that seems to be doing well in the joke that I've put together is telling the story of one time giving a tour to a married couple, and we were in the hallway and we just turned the corner and ran into a big pile of vomit on the carpet, and just dealing with that situation and how it's funny, because we were trained to turn every negative into a positive, and basically the joke is surrounding that, but in situations where you're like, you just can't turn this negative into a positive. I was running into so many negatives where you're like, I can't spin vomit into a positive. There was another time where a dog got loose in the hallway, and I was with a family from, it was a family, I don't know where they were from, but they were from a different country. They'd recently moved to the U.S. and very newly in the U.S. And a lot of people that lived there actually were doing this. There was George Mason College was there, and then it was just a very multicultural area. So there was a lot of people who were from a bunch of different countries, and obviously different countries, different cultures. They have different traditions, different norms. And one thing I realized working there is, and I've seen it since, but that was kind of one of my earlier introductions to a bunch of different cultures and people. But pets are not inside house pets are not like a huge thing, or they're like not a thing at all in a lot of these other countries. So this dog gets loose in the hallway and starts chasing after us, which for anybody, for me, somebody who grew up with dogs and stuff, like, is a disconcerting. You're like, oh my gosh, this makes me very uncomfortable. But for a family who comes from a country where pets are not like a thing at all, like having a dog inside is like crazy. That's like like, not even trying to make jokes, but a lot of, I don't know if I would say a lot, but other countries will eat dogs. Like they're not pets. They're like, this is just another animal for food. And so to have one like inside running after, long story short, the dog started running after us, and this family ran into a public restroom in the hallway and hid in there for like, 10 minutes. And I haven't been able to really make that into a joke yet. I've tried and it hasn't quite worked, but just again, turn a negative into a positive where you're like, just walking into this bathroom with this family that's so scared, and it's like, I can't. You guys can just leave. I know you're not going to rent. Sorry for the inconvenience. But a lot of weird stories there, and should try to mine and dig into that a little bit more. But that I don't even know where I started on. I'm just like tangent, 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 ing. How do you pronounce that? The gerund of tangent, tangentine. That doesn't sound right. You guys get it. I'm breaking off into different topics at an alarming rate to where I don't know if the listeners are following this. But forgive me for I haven't had my AG1 yet. So maybe I'll be like a lot less clutter-brained when I have that next week. But my point is, I did that joke at the Denver Comedy Lounge. It went well, and I might clip it out for social media. I hardly have any jokes out there, which I'm okay with, but getting a couple clips I think would be smart, I think, to start putting some out just to have something out there so people can see. So keep an eye out for that. Every time I post a joke, it gets about 300 views, so I'll be famous pretty soon. I'll be famous in no time. 300 times, how many posts do I need to put out there and get 300 views to have fans? A lot, guys. That's sarcasm, and I apologize. I'm going serious. I'm going sarcastic. It's cold in here. I should have turned the heat on. My hands are on the verge of trembling, shaking, trembling. Do you tremble from your body being cold, or is it shiver? Because is tremble only associated with fear? Tremble. I was trembling because of the cold weather. I think it's just fear. Tremble. You guys let me know. Tremble and gimbal. Speaking of gimbals, a lot of people talk about the UFOs that they see. Look like a gimbal in the sky. And I have been reading that book. I'm almost done, guys. I haven't talked about it in a minute. Nobody commented on my alien talk, and I took that as disinterest. Okay? And I would say that hurts my feelings that nobody else is interested in it, but there's, I got about 4 listeners, so it's hard to say disinterest. I appreciate you guys just listening at all, and also maybe those 4 listeners don't make it past the first 4 minutes. So maybe nobody even knows I've talked about aliens. Maybe this is just secret time with Ben. Just me looking at my camera and just zoom in on me, and I go, it's alien talk, okay? It's time to talk aliens. 12th Planet, the book I've been reading, which has been, it's been good. It has been good. It's been very good. It's been very interesting. It gives like a very new perspective on maybe how we got here and how a bunch of the tales and myths from old cultures that we say and assume are myths, where it's like, well, maybe those come from a real place. Same as the Bible, all this stuff where it's like they have these, tales or parables or whatever. And it's like maybe I bet a lot of those come from real situations. Why do we say that they're fake or myth or like tales? I digress. It's a very interesting book. I've got about 50 pages left. I'm almost done. It's taken forever to read because it's hard to digest and read more than like 15 pages at a time because it's just so dense with references to and names of people and places and cultures and time frames. It's just tough to like file it all and organize it in your brain and digest it as you're reading. So I've been, slowly but surely getting through. I should be done here soon. I'm excited for some upcoming stuff, books that I've got on the shelves. I've got Dune. I bought the second and third book. I would like to maybe start those. I also have a book that I bought a little while ago about, I can't remember the name, but it's about creativity and how we come up with ideas and stuff like that. So interested to dive into kind of a different topic of things. The alien stuff, very interesting to me, but you look kind of like a crazy person when you try to bring it up in general conversations. People, generally speaking, seem to not care too much or want to engage too much. Although, I wouldn't say it's crazy. I think at this point with them putting stuff out and all the information, it's like, okay, seems pretty plausible. I don't know why we would look at people. It's the same thing with like JFK, where it's like coming out now more and more that the FBI or CIA may have killed him, which has been a conspiracy theory all along that a lot of people were like, yeah, that seems plausible. But if you just go out on, even with the new details about like giving more information and putting more information, declassifying more stuff to make it seem more likely that the government did it. If you just go out there, a lot of your average people just go, oh, you're a kook, you're a conspiracy theorist, even though you're like, no, it seems pretty likely at this point. Anyways, I don't know much about JFK. He was in Dallas. I know he got shot in Dallas. And, I wasn't around in the 60s, but, he seemed like a cool dude. He spoke real confidently, had some speeches about going to the moon. I want to talk about aliens. He sent us to the moon. The fact that we went to the moon in the 60s is honestly not talked about and not like unbelievable. And that's another conspiracy people talk about. Like, did we actually land on the moon, or is that fake? Was the moon landing fake? And honestly, it for sure could have been faked, and it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if it was faked. But from what I know, and even if we didn't go, but from what I know, it looks like we probably went. And even if we didn't, we certainly were sending rockets up there with people and like going into space. And even that alone, the fact that we didn't, we had computers, I guess, at that point, but they were like, the size of a house just for like the space available on a floppy disk. It's like, I don't even know. I don't understand. When you're just talking to yourself and you're like, this is so interesting, this is crazy, but the words coming out of your mouth are just like, dude, it's so crazy. And then you realize you're like, I'm really not providing any sort of constructive, interesting feedback or information to the viewer. I'm just like having these thoughts in my head like, whoa, this is crazy. Isn't space travel crazy, guys? It's not even space travel. It is space travel. Going to the moon. I thought I said time travel, which time travel would be pretty dope. Pretty dope. I do get very, very interested in whether it's YouTube, Instagram, whatever, the reels, or it could be reels, podcast, whatever, but a lot of people obviously cut down podcast or interviews into little segments via the reels to get you the information quickly. And part of my algorithm seems to be kind of in that area where there's people like, I think his name is Brian Cox, Elon Musk, Neil deGrasse Tyson, like astrophysicists or people who are um, very smart and know a lot about space. We'll talk about certain topics that are just so interesting. Like I was listening to space travel. They're talking about space travel and how space travel into the past is not possible as of now, but space travel into the future is, given the correct circumstances. But it's not like, hey, well, I guess it's all the same, but like it's all about the traveling relativity. I don't know. It's all about, like, Einstein apparently came up with this like 100 years ago, which again is like the people who come up with this stuff, it's like how smart. I can't even wrap my head around what that their brains must be doing. It's kind of wild. But if you travel at the speed of light, so if you go off on a space mission, I mean, it's the whole Interstellar thing. If you watch that movie, you travel off at these speeds very fast and do that for a long time, say 5-10 years, speed of light, and then you come back. You will come back into the future because time is different here versus somebody traveling at the speed of light. So they would come back in the future, which is such a wild. You're like, I don't even know what that means. That's so cool, but what does that even? What do you mean? You'll come back in the future? You're like, what? And that's so interesting to me. Some of these questions that will almost certainly not be answered during my lifetime, if ever. Will we ever find out the true nature and secrets of our origins, where we came from? Was the Big Bang real? Seems like scientists agree it was real, but what was before the Big Bang? What created the Big Bang? All this stuff is very interesting. And it's funny because it's like it gives you a different outlook on life to a certain extent, but I don't like it's like, oh dude, aliens, the foundation of our creation and this and that. All right, well, I got to get up and go to work, so I can't think about that too much. So it's like these little interesting thoughts where you're like, that could change everything. But you're like, all right, but got to get paid and pay the bill. So let me put this quote together and not think about that for too much longer. But that's where we're at, guys. I have bounced around a lot. I had a lot of coffee today. I don't have excuses. I ate 6 to 7 pieces of bacon. I had 3 eggs. I had potatoes out of the oven. I had fruit. I mean, I had a breakfast that should be making my brain spurt out some real hot takes right now. But you know what? Sometimes you eat too much fruit and you give real weak takes and you talk about space for a little too long. But let me start landing this ship and tell you guys a little bit about tonight and what else I have going on and whatever else pops in my brain in the next 5 to 10 minutes. But I'm doing a don't tell tonight, just a guest spot. I'm nothing big. I'm not hosting or anything like that. Just probably a guest spot. But always excited to do don't tell. It's a very fun show, no matter where you're at. So excited to do that tomorrow. I don't know. I always say I'm going to go to a mic on Sunday, but it's my reset day. But I'm glad I'm doing the podcast. I've been behind on the podcast, so doing it on a Saturday makes it great because then I can actually, take that off the task list and it frees up my Sunday a little bit better. But I've got Don't Tell Tonight, and then next week I've got oh my gosh, I've got a Don't Tell on Thursday next week, and then I'm doing a show in Sterling Ranch on Saturday. Excited for those. I feel very lucky. I say this a lot, and I know this probably isn't that interesting, but I feel very fortunate, especially in the last 6 months or so. It's very easy to complain and be like, oh, I'm not getting this or that. I feel very, very fortunate for the path that I'm on and what I'm getting. A lot of stuff has come together. I've worked very hard to build things, but pieces of the puzzle are starting to connect, and I'm starting to get more consistent work, and still working through new jokes and the act, and getting better at hosting and tightening my jokes and just confidence on stage, all of it. And very excited moving forward to have kind of more consistent gigs and more opportunities around higher level comics within the scene and outside of the scene, to just, the more you're around people that are better than you and that have more experience than you, the more you can learn, and the more you should learn, and the more you should take advantage of learning. That's something that I can certainly be guilty of, but I think a lot of comics, myself included, it can be easy to not take advantage of some of those very, very obvious things that would get you better, aka watching headliners, asking questions, just getting feedback, all of the above. Very fortunate to be in Denver and in a very solid scene where you're surrounded by a bunch of people who are very, very good at comedy. And you can learn so much. And I have learned so much. I mean, it's kind of crazy to be like, just think a couple years ago when I just started looking into producing shows. And, when I first started, I was very excited about comedy, but I didn't have the skill set. I didn't have the act or the jokes. I just had the motivation, basically. And to now be in a place, less than 5 years later, where it's like, yeah, dude, I have jokes. I have the experience, and I'm ready to apply that to a level to where you're like, this is starting to become a career. Which is very, very cool. A lot of things in my life that, whether it's myself or anybody else, you have these passions, hobbies, whatever, where, you dabble around and do it, and you learn and you grow, but it's, a lot of stuff, it doesn't last that long. But this is something that I think the reason it's lasted so long is because it's just something I've always wanted to do. And I think it really matches with just who I am as a person, being able to just be a goofball, be silly, make jokes and make money. But also it allows me to essentially work for myself, gives me flexibility in that sense. It allows me to have a creative outlet, which is something that's very important to me that I didn't fully realize, I think, until I was older, certainly. Maybe until starting comedy. Maybe I didn't realize until that point. Probably I knew before because I dabbled with music and, video editing and these things that were just creative projects that I very much enjoyed and pursued, but always wanted to do comedy. I've said it before, growing up in a smaller area, didn't really have an opportunity or an outlet or an idea of how to start and do comedy. So to be in a place now where I've been able to do it, get reps in, experience, be surrounded by a bunch of creative people that are very funny that I've been able to learn from, become friends with, all the above. It's been very, very cool. And I look forward to the next 5 years, to the future. It's exciting stuff, anytime you put a lot of effort, a lot of work towards something, and you get to see the fruits of your labor. Is that a thing people say? The fruits of your labor, and really get to see the progress little by little. It's always rewarding, obviously, but it's cool to do that and see that and feel the reward of building that. But also, we're very lucky as comedians because you feel the reward of it in the moment too, aka doing shows and have people laugh immediately, and you're like, yes, this is working. But then the larger scope of things, looking at, for example, myself, looking at what I would consider my feature set, 25 to 30 minutes, and over 5 years, you write all this material. If I were to give a time amount of all the material that I've written, it's in a joke format. Maybe it's not great, but it's like I've written it. It's gotten, at the very least, light chuckles, myself and anybody, you write a bunch of stuff, and I've written quite a bit of time. I'm not even going to throw a time out there because I'd just be guessing, and it would probably come off as pretentious. But I've put a lot of work into writing and trying to come up with new material, and to boil that down to just the best, most cohesive 25 minutes. And it's ever changing. I'm constantly putting in better bits, adding bits, subtracting bits, changing bits. But the current status of my 25-ish minutes, I feel very good about. I feel, I've said it in the past where I'm like, I feel ready to feature at like smaller clubs at least, for sure. But more than ever, I feel totally like, yeah, I can go rip for 25. At not just small clubs, like I've got the jokes and I'm ready. And I'm ready to, this might sound pretentious. I don't care. I'm not walking around saying I'm a big headliner, but I feel ready to start learning how to headline in smaller rooms or lower stakes places where it's like, yeah, I can go do 45. I'm not coming out here going, I'm gonna crush for 45, blah, blah, blah. But you got to start somewhere, and I do feel ready to start that journey to learn, to get the reps in. And next year, I think will be that year, big year to learn on a headliner or as a headliner. And yeah, so next year, I mean, kind of my timeline right now is next year, get a lot more money, a lot more shows, a lot more headline, or start doing headlining stuff, get on the road consistently, like once a month, if not more, do a lot more in the city. And then 2025, I think, will be the year where I think I will be ready to make that leap to full time. So very excited about the future. Guys, I'm gonna end it there. I bounced around quite a bit, and I say this every time. I try to make this interesting. Is it interesting? You guys be the judge. Genuinely, leave a comment. Let me know. I do genuinely want to know. It'll help me kind of stop tangenting, or if I do tangent, go into things that you all enjoy. If there's a certain aspect of the podcast, topic, thing that you want me to cover, please leave a comment. Let me know. Would love to hear from you. But with that said, I'll end the podcast there. Appreciate you guys listening and tuning in this week, and I'll see you guys again next week.